Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What organization do you work for, and how do you come to this? How are you here today?
Well, I'm the executive director at the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. I came over to the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign about 5.5 years ago after spending most of my adult lifetime, actually 32 years, at the Progressive magazine. And I'd come across the term gerrymandering before when I was at the Progressive, so I knew basically what it was. And I had a sense then that, well, it's kind of an obscure issue that a lot of political wonks are interested in, but maybe most citizens aren't going to be able to grapple with it. And to my surprise, I was wrong. It's become a really hot issue here in Wisconsin, which I'm delighted about. And when I came over to the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, I was Johnny come lately. I was way behind my colleagues who'd been working on this issue for more than a decade. They'd actually tried to get the Democrats to pass a bill in 2009 and 2010 when Democrats had the state assembly and the state senate, and Jim Doyle was governor, to pass a bill there to ban gerrymandering. They had the power to do it, but they didn't do it because people in the Democratic Party have told me the leadership back then thought they were going to win in 2010 and could rig the maps for themselves. And gerrymandering's wrong whether Democrats are rigging the maps or Republicans are rigging the maps.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Well, thanks for being part of the effort. Can you explain to us just briefly what is gerrymandering?
Well, it's interesting. This I found out when I got to the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign because I didn't know where the word came from. And it's a funny little story because the word dates back to the early part of the 19th century, where Governor Gerry, or Gary, Gerry, of Massachusetts, was in power. And after a census back then, he rigged the maps in favor of his political party. And the maps were such bizarrely shaped creatures. One actually looked like a salamander. So people put the name Gary and salamander together, or Jerry and salamander together, to get to gerrymander. And it's been with us ever since.
Great, cool. Well, I hear the term gerrymandering. I also hear the term fair maps. What are they the same thing? How do they relate to each other?
Yeah, the fight for fair maps is the same identical fight as the fight to ban gerrymandering. It's just one way to express it and another way to express it.
Okay. And how does gerrymandering impact like my vote?
Well, a lot of people don't have equal representation because of gerrymandering. Remember, people fought in our Revolutionary War for equal representation. We don't have equal representation if the party that's in power rigs the map so it muffles the voices of the people against them. And that should be unconstitutional. It's outrageous. And no party should be able to keep themselves in power for 10 years just by moving a line here and moving a line there on a map. That's ridiculous. That's outrageous.
So you're saying based on where the line is, my vote may not have the same impact as someone else's vote in my same district.
Exactly. I mean, what they use two tricks. One is to pack as many Democrats into as few districts as possible, so that the rest of the districts are predominantly Republican. And so they get more representation than they would have if they just left people where they were on the previous map. And the other effort, other than cramming Democrats together, was to splinter Democrats apart. And so several towns and cities were split 3 and 4 ways, sent into rural areas that are predominantly Republican, so that no longer are they represented by a Democrat, they're represented by a Republican. In fact, in 2011, the Republicans brought in a political scientist from the University of Oklahoma, if you can believe that,
Wow.
to help them draw these maps, to rig the maps. They came up with not just one map, not just 2 maps, not just 3 maps, 9 incarnations of maps, using the exact same numbers in Wisconsin of voters with the same political representation. And they just moved the lines so that each successive map predicted an increase in Republican representation in the state assembly. They knew exactly what they were doing. It was good rigging if they could get away with it, and they've gotten away with it so far.
Yeah. And my understanding is in some other states, Democrats have done this as well. Are there currently any examples of that happening in other states and Democrats having the power?
Yeah, it's happened in Illinois a lot. It's happened in Rhode Island. The classic was the U.S. Supreme Court had a case last year. Last June, they decided a case where they could have thrown out hyper-partisan gerrymandering like we've been suffering under here for the last 10 years, because they were dealing with two cases at the US Supreme Court. One was from Maryland, where the Democrats grotesquely gerrymandered the map, and the other was from North Carolina, where the Republicans grotesquely gerrymandered the map. And what did Chief Justice Roberts decide? Well, on the one hand, he said, and this is a direct quote, that hyperpartisan gerrymandering is incompatible with our democratic principles. Wow, when he said that, I thought for sure they're going to throw this out. But then he said, and this is not a direct quote, go away, don't ever come back. We don't ever want to hear from you again. The courthouse door is locked. He said no federal court can now deal with a partisan gerrymandering issue and decide it one way or another, because it's not up to the courts to decide. It's up to the states to decide. I thought it was an outrageous decision, as did the dissenters in that Supreme Court decision. But there we are. We're stuck to solving it at the state level. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem when he throws it back to the states to decide, because the states are dealing with gerrymandered maps that help the party in power stay in power.
Right, right. So what are our options in Wisconsin? What can we do to fix the problem?
Our strategy is to put as much pressure as possible on every single elected official, on every single person running for office, to make them pledge to pass a law to ban gerrymandering. We can have the legislature pass a law and the governor to sign a law, and then we can get rid of gerrymandering. We can have fair maps in Wisconsin. And the neat thing is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Iowa invented the wheel 40 years ago. They didn't put a patent on the sucker. We can copy what they did in Iowa, and we can have fair maps in Wisconsin. In Iowa, what they did was simply, they said, career civil servants, in the equivalent of our Legislative Reference Bureau, will draw the maps with real specific criteria that prohibit them from using political demographic data, which district voted predominantly Republican, which district voted predominantly Democrat. They can't use that data to rig the maps. And by excluding the use of that data, it'll be impossible for them to gerrymander, or gerrymander with any degree of success. And so that's the model we want to see adopted. That's the model that most people in this reform movement in Wisconsin that's burgeoning want to see adopted. And last session, there was a bill again introduced to give us the Iowa model. And 5 Republicans signed on to the bill as co-sponsors. That was 4 more than ever before. So our movement to pressure candidates and pressure legislators is having an effect already. So I would urge everybody to contact their current legislators, contact Voss and Fitzgerald, contact anyone who's running for office, and urge them to pledge to support legislation to ban gerrymandering in Wisconsin. And citizens can take a pledge to say, I'm not going to vote for any candidate who doesn't agree to vote for legislation to ban gerrymandering in Wisconsin once and for all.
And so in Pierce County, we had a referendum, and our neighboring county, St. Croix County, also had a referendum on April 7th, and both passed by 76%. So our elected officials, if they're representing us, should want to take that a step further, right? If the voters have said by 76% that they want fair maps or a ban on gerrymandering, then it would make sense that our elected officials would want to do the same, since they're representing us. Is that what you've seen?
Occasionally, that's how it should happen. That's how democracy is supposed to happen. And there's one example where it did happen. That's with Representative Mursa up in the northeast corner of the state. He was doing a Facebook poll every week on an issue of the day with his constituents. And one week he put up this question of nonpartisan redistricting. And the response he got was overwhelmingly in favor of it. So he said, okay, I'm going to co-sponsor this legislation. That's how it's supposed to happen. Unfortunately, many legislators right now, because the system is rigged, both because of gerrymandering and because of money in politics, they view their donors as their constituents rather than the citizens of their district. Or they want to walk in lockstep with their leadership, Voss and Fitzgerald, who can threaten to run someone against them if that person doesn't toe the party line. So those are some of the obstacles we're facing. But yes, this effort to pressure our legislators and let them know that the vast majority of people in their district want this to happen, that can have the desired effect, which is to have whoever is representing you actually represent what you want.
Right, exactly. Great. Well, let's see how many people we can get involved. It does seem like a really good thing. Have our government represent the people. That is the point.
Yes, imagine that in a democracy.
um, so, what makes you hopeful about the Fair Maps effort? I mean, there's, as you said, there's money in politics. The system's already kind of rigged. Why are you hopeful? Why are you working towards this? Why do you think it's going to work?
Well, this movement has just caught fire. That's been the exciting thing over the last 5.5 years since I've been at the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. You know, out of almost nowhere, we've got 50 counties to pass county board resolutions to ban gerrymandering and send a message to the legislature, please sign this bill and give us fair maps in Wisconsin. We've got 17 counties, including now Pierce County and St. Croix County, to pass referendums saying the people want to see this happen. There have been 16 communities up in Oneida and Vilas County that have passed referendums. There are communities that have passed resolutions in Price County and Columbia County. The people really want this to happen. And the grassroots effort is very exciting for me to see. People
Yeah.
taking initiative on their own, sometimes spontaneously, sometimes through organizing from groups like ours and other groups in the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition. People are really taking the ball and running with it. You see the Fair Maps for Wisconsin signs in people's yards. You see these resolutions and referendums passing. I mean, pretty soon, just almost every county will have passed a referendum or a resolution on this. We only have 72 counties. 50 have already passed the resolution. So, this is a tremendous movement. Most of this has just happened in the last 3 years.
Yeah. I
I
see
think
a lot of, oh, go ahead.
no, it's just this is one of the most underreported stories in the media, this tremendous grassroots movement to ban gerrymandering in Wisconsin. It's very exciting to see, to watch it happen.
Yeah.
I wish the
There's a,
media would pay attention.
yeah, there's a lot of energy that I see just talking to my friends and people around here about it in Western Wisconsin. People want fairness. I mean, that's what we think we should be getting from our government, and we're not happy that it's not that way. So there's definitely a lot of energy in this part of Wisconsin. So it's great to hear that that's happening everywhere. Um, what do you think is most challenging about getting this across the line, which would basically be have it pass in the next legislature, right? The nonpartisan committee for drawing the lines. What's most challenging about getting that done?
Yeah, one of the biggest hurdles is just getting sensible Republicans to agree. They must know in their heart or in their gut that rigging a map is just unkosher. It's not cool. It's undemocratic, small d. It's grotesque.
Yeah,
I think there are some very decent Republicans in the legislature who, if they had their druthers, would vote for this, but they're being, whipped into shape and whipped into line by their leadership, so they don't want to dare step away. And I just think they need to be able to look at themselves in the mirror in the morning and say, I did the right thing on this. And I think more and more of them will be coming around. But I know that, Speaker Voss doesn't want to see it happen. And Fitzgerald doesn't want to see it happen. And so it's a problem with them. Do they want to stay in the legislature, or are they worried that Speaker Voss is going to run someone against them and give that candidate a ton of money so they'll be defeated? Do they want to stick their neck out on this one and have it be chopped off? That's the real problem.
right. Yeah. So as the people of Wisconsin, if many of us are saying that we want an end to gerrymandering, we really need to make our voice heard, because it's not right that one or two people with a lot of power can decide something against the millions of people in Wisconsin that don't want it to happen. Yeah, interesting. Great. Let's see. What do you enjoy the most about your work on this issue to ban gerrymandering?
Well, I love working with other grassroots groups. Before the virus hit, I loved traveling around the state, talking to groups all over the state at the grassroots level. I've been to Oneida County and Vilas County and Door County and all across the state talking about this. And unfortunately, I had to cancel a lot of my talks once the pandemic hit. But just seeing the grassroots energy, seeing the awareness of the importance of this issue rise so high that now a vast majority of Wisconsinites want to ban gerrymandering. There was a Marquette Law School poll about a year and a half ago that showed that 72% of Wisconsinites want fair maps, want nonpartisan redistricting, want to ban gerrymandering. And amazingly, that included 63% of Republicans and 76% of independents. So the people are with us on that. And just to see this movement grow has been thrilling, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I like the energy. Um, do you remember a time during your childhood where you felt like things were really unfair?
Well, when I was a kid, I was kind of a geeky, weird little fat kid with a weird shaped head. So, I was called Fatty Matty or Egghead when I was growing up, when I was in kindergarten through fifth grade, maybe. So I think that had an impact on me. And my mom was active in the civil rights movement. So racial injustice was something that I was aware of. And so, yeah, the fact of things not being fair, I got grown up.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think that's part of why you're working on this now? Do you see a link to that, or is there anything else from your past that you think is really drawing you to this work now?
Well, my parents were Adlai Stevenson Democrats. They worked for Adlai Stevenson. They were in Illinois. They wanted him to be president of the United States. So they were liberal Democrats. So that rubbed off on me a little bit. I went to college and worked in the anti-apartheid movement, where I really saw unfairness in South Africa's racist system, and then in the more attention I paid then to racism in the United States and saw the unfairness there. And at the Progressive, magazine, I was looking at the problems of our democracy. What are those problems? Those problems are money in politics. Those problems are an unequal economy. The problems are a malfunctioning media, and problems of, very well entrenched racism. And so, the system being rigged is just the common theme that runs through almost all of that. And that is really the theme of this effort to give us fair maps in Wisconsin and to ban gerrymandering in Wisconsin, unrig the system, give us fairness, just basic level playing field. I mean, I think that's what Wisconsinites want, a basic level playing field. We want a level playing field. There's nothing, more Wisconsin nice than a level playing field. And, rigging the maps deprives us of a level playing field. That's why we need to ban gerrymandering in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, Matt, this has been a really great conversation. Thank you for helping us understand the issue. Is there anything else that we should know, be thinking about, anything we didn't cover that you'd like us to bring up?
One thing to add is that, if you got friends in Pepin County, it'd be great to get Pepin County to come around. It's kind of an island now in northwestern Wisconsin that hasn't come on board either with a resolution from the county board or a referendum to let the people in Madison in the legislature know that we want to ban gerrymandering. So if you have activists in Pepin County, get in contact with them and push that across. But I want to thank everybody, especially the grassroots in Pierce County, for passing that referendum by 76%. That was just tremendous work.
Yeah, that was really great. I'm with you. Well, we'll reach out to our neighbors in Pepin, and thanks a lot, Matt.
My pleasure.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.